Now, unfortunately, we will all notice the same thing, that in the market there is just blunt hype right now and no one is really thinking anymore. So the topic that has probably made the biggest waves in the last few days has risen by nearly $18 million in the last few days. Yeah, what can I say? I think this video is going to blow some minds. Why? It's simple. I've done a bit of research and I've been curious about this for a while. So, hey, Donald Trump, why has he suddenly taken a stand for crypto? What is his master plan? And what does it have to do with Bitcoin? No, I don't want to say too much in advance because this is going to be a pretty sensitive topic. What I found out that you probably won't, right? Keep it on the radar. So let's dive right in. By the way, before the announcement, tomorrow, for the first time in the history of Uptrend, there will be a YouTube live, probably around 4 p.m. The announcement will still come in the Telegram group. That's it for now. Just be there and ask your questions. But now let's get started with the video. We'll see each other after the intro. Today's video is brought to you by BitMEX. And if you want to secure a €25 bonus now, then check out the description. Here's the registration. Now back to the topic. Let's start at the very beginning, because if you can remember back in 2021, Donnie wasn't really a big fan of Bitcoin. So here, for example, he called Bitcoin a scam, basically a threat to the dollar, and so on and so forth. There were several statements. He also expressed himself very negatively on Twitter back then. I don't want to say it. The posts were deleted, but I definitely couldn't find a single article about it online anymore. And actually, they always say the internet never forgets. But anyway, it is what it is. In any case, such articles are still online. And now I've been asking myself the big question because, well, I don't know him personally. So I don't want to attack him either. Even though it feels like everyone in the EU is against Trump, he's just so evil. Let's just leave it at that. However, I do not want to stop at this point. Speculate. I really just don't believe that he's doing all of this out of charity. And that brings us to the first factor. Because if you remember back to the election campaign, at first it was, yes, Trump against Biden. Okay, Biden, he probably couldn't even remember that he just ran for election again. And as a result, all the sponsors were a bit hesitant. That has to do with donations. And then he quickly took on Harris. Then the race looked completely different. However, Harris still had a disadvantage because the backers and sponsors were kind of the same as with Biden. Well, yes, Trump definitely pulled a clear advantage from that, because that's the most obvious reason why he suddenly got into the times of Bitcoin and crypto. Voter votes. So he probably asked himself the question quite easily, hey, Biden, that's really stupid what you're doing right now, because he was completely against crypto. However, 1 in 5 eligible voters in the USA holds cryptocurrencies. Well, and good, that ended up playing out accordingly. That Trump presented himself as the Bitcoin president. Now, I've looked further and found something interesting here, which is definitely heading in a political direction. So I was thinking more mainly as it's just monetary things. What drives Trump? So yeah, I'll get to that in a moment. In any case, in this case, it's more about the geopolitical. There was an interview with Bloomberg on the 16th July of last year, and he explained again, we should take action there. So the USA, regarding, for example, China, they are definitely much further ahead in the crypto sector. In any case, this is basically about an arms race for Bitcoin. So basically, who holds the most Bitcoin the fastest? And yes, it's nice to have that summarized here. Biden's hatred for Bitcoin only helps China, Russia, and the radical communist left. We want the entire remaining Bitcoin to be produced in the USA. But of course, let's move on to the next topic. Money, money, money. Yeah, exactly. Donald Trump as a billionaire isn't that far off. So rumors started to circulate, and there was also that recent interview where it was mentioned again. Trump definitely holds Bitcoin. That whole thing, it should be a significant amount, and it is before the rise. So you might think, yeah, okay, so he's conservative and so on. His wallet has just increased in the last few days, and the report isn't old. Increased by nearly $18 million, and mainly because of memecoin. Okay. So I didn't have that on my radar myself. If you knew that, feel free to write to me in the comments. But I find that very interesting because that means he's definitely active in the DeFi sector and is absolutely a supporter of Bitcoin. And with that, let's get straight to World Liberty Financial. Some of you might have heard of it before. It was founded in 2024 by Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump. This is all about cryptocurrencies. So that means users can buy various cryptocurrencies or invest in it and use crypto for borrowing and lending. So borrowing and lending, just recently, nearly $10 million worth of wrapped Bitcoin was exchanged for Ethereum. And there are also a few meme coins and grog. So I think that's going to be a meme coin. I've never heard of it before, but definitely here as well. 16.7 million, mainly USDC, followed by Ethereum. AAV is still in the mix, but it goes even further, that there are various meme coins involved here as well. Among others, also Pepe, Dodge. Yes, this is now the wallet that you can see. I don't want to imply anything here, that there are some hidden wallets, but that's just the advantage of crypto. It's all a bit obscured. So yes, I definitely don't want to deny that there's self-interest involved, because theoretically he could now also function like a kind of influencer, just give a certain push in a certain direction without it being an official promotion. But as an example, many should have noticed this, that Eric Trump has just revealed his holdings and, for example, explained it to you. So I'm holding Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and SW. Aha! Okay, good. Something like that can definitely trigger a corresponding push, because then many will say, well, if he's doing that, I'll do it too. And then maybe you can have some agreements on a governmental level. And this is going to be exciting. I'm going to dive into that now. At this point, we can actually discuss it right away. I don't think it will happen on Monday, the 20th. January, we'll see a big pump, because in my opinion, the market has already priced that in. It's already priced in. So if you have a different opinion, feel free to write to me in the comments. I also explained that in a recent video. Feel free to click in here, because the point is, the question is no longer whether Trump will come or not move into the White House. That's all pretty much set. What's more interesting is what actions he will take now. And here it's also being talked about that he already, on the first day that he was in office, can really make a difference. And that could be, for example, this crypto that he could convene, that then within 100 days will come up with appropriate improvement proposals, whether regulatory, etc., should work out, or also abolish this SAB 121. Is it a tiny little problem? If banks want to become active in cryptocurrencies in any way, because now, as an example, a bank wants to hold Bitcoin worth 2 million, then they would theoretically have to hold the same value. So these $2 million as a store of value or as liquid assets, in this case in dollars, in parallel. It's obviously complete nonsense. So sure, with smaller amounts like 2 million or so, that might still be manageable. But if that ever takes on a bit larger dimensions, then it will definitely become difficult. So there's already speculation about that this whole thing will be abolished. That would definitely be really strong. Whether this prediction of 5 million per Bitcoin by Saylor will come true, I'll just leave it at that. Standing in the room. By the way, at this point, if you're interested in this topic around the bet, the Saylor has entered into, which I believe is absolutely dangerous, then feel free to click in here, because many people always sing about BlackRock. Oh, the evil, because they hold so much Bitcoin. Yes, with the small difference. BlackRock manages, but they don't hold the Bitcoin alone. They can't just say overnight, let's press the button and sell everything, because there are investors behind it. But that's the big difference between MicroStrategy and Michael Saylor. He's obviously very bullish now. But now think about it. He gets up tomorrow morning and both of them might not remember anything anymore. Or Olaf Scholz. He knows that from the COMEX process for sure, if something like that were to happen. And he suddenly says, oh yes, now with corn and Brown doesn't have any more either. Then he could cause quite a stir, because the good man does hold quite a few. Bitcoin holds, but just as a size dimension, so MicroStrategy's strategy, they probably receive something like 450,000 Bitcoin. Okay, BlackRock. So in the ETF itself is at 558,000 Bitcoin, decent, US government at 198,000. And now it gets interesting, because unfortunately, we will all soon realize that in the market right now, it's just blunt hype and no one is really thinking anymore, because it's about the US reserves. And I'm getting to the core of it now, that in the market right now, it's just blunt hype and no one is really thinking anymore, because it's about the US reserves, and I'm getting to the core of it now. But let's approach this a bit more calmly. So first of all, it was discussed, and that caused the most uproar. The strategic Bitcoin reserves, of course, you really hope for that. So there's another proposal from the year 2024, which is called the Bitcoin Act. It comes from a US senator. Here are Loomis. So far, so good. Now, I've just asked myself the question, okay, so we're all hoping for that, and that something like this gets signed right on the first day in office. But how realistic is it that such an implementation will come so quickly? And then I first did some reading and found out, stupid. So no matter what position Trump would be in, he can't decide that all by himself. And if you dig a little deeper, no, I'll tell you that in a moment. I think it might be too much all at once, but here's another example. We had the topic of the 18th December, where Powell first made it very clear. So first of all, we're not allowed to own any Bitcoin. And secondly, we actually don't want to. So he actually would really like CBDCs. Yeah, well, that's just how it is. He thinks everything's fine, but all in all, so he didn't sound like he wanted to change that right away. And what is also a fact is, no matter what Trump might say, but he can't just kick Powell out the door. That doesn't work. And in contrast to that, our friend Gary Gensler has also made it very clear, no, I'm not going anywhere. But to get straight to the point, no, that you think I'm going to tell you something crazy about Gary and don't know anything. There are several factors. Let's say it's, for example, the political will we just saw here, or the regulatory environment. So we're talking about a time frame of 3 to 7 years, and that makes sense in a way, because in a democracy, everyone kind of decides, theoretically, yes. Well, when it comes to institutional implementation, acceptance, etc., I'm less worried about that now. So you can see it through the ETFs. The whole thing has been accepted technologically. That's obviously a different question. If you go with a cold wallet, you can use coins and so on. But the whole thing, it has to be completely secure. So it can't get any safer than that. Because one thing is, okay, if an ETF goes under, that would be stupid, clearly bad. But in the other case, the US government is involved. So that's definitely a thing. But of course, one must also say this. International competition is also growing. Am I going to be included in that soon? But we have China, we have Russia, we have El Salvador as an example. That you think about it, okay, you really have to get involved and participate. And like I said, all in all, please sit down for a moment. I've done some research on this. We're talking roughly about 5 to 10 years until something like this can be implemented. And now we're talking about the Bitcoin reserve. So let's summarize the whole thing briefly. Can Trump implement a Bitcoin reserve himself or not? No, that's not possible. The president himself can, for one, start an initiative and with an executive order temporarily implement a measure, but he can't enact a permanent law. After that, the Congress comes first. He has legislation. He has legislative power, so he can create a regulatory framework to approve such Bitcoin reserves. And then this gentleman comes back into play because the Federal Reserve makes the final decision about the composition of the reserve, and then it still goes on. Then the regulatory authorities come in. They then ensure that the legal framework for Bitcoin transactions is clear and binding. So to get straight to the point, Trump can talk a lot about it, but in the end, he still can't just implement it. I can hardly bring myself to say it, but you can probably guess what I'm getting at. So yes, I'm just going to show it to you now. So the topic that has probably made the most waves in the last few days, that was the report from the New York Post that has been announced. Trump is considering starting US reserves with XRP, Solana, and USDC. At least they are named. But it's mainly about US crypto projects from the USA or crypto companies. Why is Cardano not included anymore? For example, no idea. I would be very personally happy. Then the price would also go up nicely. Springs, but good, yes. But we just said Bitcoin could take 5 to 10 years to develop. And there is definitely some regulatory framework clarified. Yeah. So I did a bit of research on that to make it short and painless. XRP and Solana could also easily play out in this time frame because a lot more needs to be clarified there. Now, all Republicans can breathe a sigh of relief. XRP tends to be, the chances are better than with Solana. USDC could indeed be implemented faster. So we're talking about somewhere between 2 and 5 years. But that also makes sense in a way because we're also talking about a stable coin. But okay, that's enough on that topic. I think we can discuss a lot about that. So feel free to write about it in the comments. Now back to the geopolitical aspect. And I can definitely imagine that very strongly. So besides all that, China is ramping up its efforts and so on, and Russia is now also getting into the mining business and so forth, which is something you only catch half of. BRICS, which includes Brazil, Russia, China, and others sitting inside. And yeah, they're considering whether to use Bitcoin as the currency. Then the whole game can really come into play nicely. Because with these Bitcoin reserves, if they really come through, it could trigger a real snowball effect. Because the fact that the USA says, yeah, all right, we're getting involved, we just saw it with the FDP, then there are proposals for legislation, or rather, first proposals need to come in, then we can get involved. How? Yeah, if they do that, then we want to do it too. So the one who holds the most Bitcoin, in the end, that person has the power. And if the power is back with the USA, because they hold the complete or most of the Bitcoin, so in majority rights, then MicroStrategy and others can also come into play, or BlackRock, which is involved and so on. Then it's just one of those things where, hey, in the end, the USA has control again. Where BRICS feels like it wants to detach itself from the dollar, and that's why he says that, okay, Bitcoin makes sense there because, for example, they are all competitors like China and Russia and so on. And if now the gold reserves for the currency are in China, which supports the whole thing, like with a gold standard, for example, then it's kind of tough for Russia sometimes, because then they really don't have access. So Bitcoin would be realistic. The only question is how realistic it will all be when the whole power share comes into play again. And of course, you can also trigger corresponding pressure, because then the USA could say, we are selling our Bitcoin holdings. And that would really send the price crashing down. And now I have something briefly, which is far from the topic, because while I was researching, and I've seen this repeatedly in all the media articles lately, Solana, that has definitely piqued my interest. What is that supposed to be? So just a quick note, in case someone asks the questions when he sees it pop up somewhere in my videos. or is also out and about somewhere. That's basically a layer 2 on Solana. I have no idea. So it says here, yeah, sure, first layer 2. Yes. Whether it's needed, that might just be left open for now. There seems to be infinite scaling behind it. Then it's mainly designed for meme coins. You also have staking rewards included. There's also a pre-sale going on. I just want to say this openly at this point. So yeah, advertising banners this way, advertising banners that way. Such things gain traction through projects that run on, for example, this chain. Then that could definitely be interesting. Well, it really depends on whether Solana experiences any outages or anything like that again. But there are other chains that are currently getting involved a bit, like the base chain, which has also kind of made a name for itself. With the speed, it also gets into the AI sector with rain, memes, etc. And since I can imagine that some out there have also stumbled upon these advertising banners repeatedly, that I want to bring it up in this context before any questions come up in the Telegram group, for example. By the way, if you're not in on that yet, there's a link to it in the description. And here's a preliminary info. Tomorrow, for the first time in the history of Uptrend, there will be a YouTube live. That means be there live. I will announce it again in the Telegram group. It will probably take place around 4 p.m. And then we can talk about it completely. Let's talk about it. What can we expect on Monday, for example? So is a pump really coming or not? How can you prepare for it? What should you do now? And so on and so forth. We will talk about all these topics. I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm excited, of course. It's awesome if you're there live and ask your questions live too. Otherwise, in conclusion, I can only give you this tip. Check out this video. It sounds futuristic now, but I'll show you in a very simple way how you can become a crypto millionaire. Yes, it's not that hard. So I would give you the tip to check out the video, and you know it. I'm not creating hype here on the channel. Here's the real talk, so you'll experience that in the video too. Otherwise, we'll see each other live. See you tomorrow. All the best to you.